So I'll try to make you all happy or entertained this evening. My true title is Uber Tech Lead, Search Quality and User Happiness. And my job is to work in the core search product team and try to understand what makes you as a Google searcher happy or unhappy. So when Chris called me, he said, gee, you know, Dan, I want you to talk about what the future of services will be. Because we know Google does lots and lots of services. So what's it going to be? Could you please tell me some secrets? I will be not making any product announcements tonight. So you're not going to get any of those kinds of secrets. But I thought about this carefully, and I put together this talk, which I hope is interesting and entertaining. And I thought about the future of services, and I realized I don't know. It's a little bit like trying to predict 1,000 years in the future, because the velocity of change is so fast. When I worked at IBM, I used to give talks about what the future would be. And I had these beautiful curves that would predict the storage density, processor cycle speed, all that stuff. But we didn't predict Google, we didn't predict Facebook, we didn't predict, you know, name your favorite new technology. And I want to argue it's even worse now. So I want to put a little bit of historical perspective on this. So I'm going to read a little bit of this to you, and I want to read it. We have reason to fear that the multitude of books which grows every day in a prodigious fashion will make the following centuries fall into a state as barbarous as that of the centuries that followed the fall of Rome. We must try to prevent this danger by separating those books which we must throw out or leave in oblivion from those which one should save, and within the latter separate between what is useful and what is not. Anybody recognize this? Anybody want to take a guess as to when this was written? 1685. The information overload problem has always been with us. This is not a new effect. So people have been complaining about information overload essentially, well, since the dawn of time, basically. I want to argue that the same thing is true for a lot of stuff we're trying to think about. Does anybody remember this service, for example? Right? Yeah, some of you are old enough to remember the index, the Reader's Guide to Periodical Literature. It was the pre-Google way to find stuff in the literature. And so you would go to the library, which at that time had drawers full of file index cards, and you would look stuff up, right? Remember that? That lovely tactile expression of reaching into the index manually. It was, in fact, a digital index because you did this with your fingers, right? And you would look up articles like on this page in the Reader's Guide to Periodical Literature. So the interesting thing about the guide was that it took up many, many, many linear feet of the library bookshelf. It was a major pain to use. It really was. So I want to, though, take our eye back to the previous quote and replace this. We fear that the multitude of services which grow every day. Think about this. How many services do you know and actually use on a day-to-day basis? So I want to argue, in fact, we're in this interesting position where the current set of services, the current set of things that we can touch, use, and access is changing very, very rapidly. So I'm not sure what the future of information services will be, but I know a few things. Here's one. It will definitely be social. Let me tell you a story. All my stories are true. This is another one. I was actually on this tram. This is in Portland, Oregon. I was going from the airport to the middle of downtown. It's a fabulous tram, fabulous service. And much to my surprise, I found myself talking to the homeless man sitting next to me on the tram. I don't often speak to homeless people, but he was a really interesting guy because he had this gigantic camera, really high-end digital camera, and I couldn't resist. What is this homeless guy doing with this giant lens and this giant camera? It's like a 12-megapixel camera. And so I asked him, so why do you have that camera? And he goes into this long story, a little bit rambling, a little bit shambling, but he said he takes pictures of planes. Do you know why he takes pictures of planes? He's taking pictures of tail numbers. This is his hobby. His avocation is to be a tail spotter for all the traffic going in and out of Portland Airport. Now, you might not think that was interesting, except he then shares all those tail numbers with all of the other advocates and devotees of tail spotting. Remember the movie Train Spotting? It's the same thing, except it flies. Okay? What happens is that these guys all share information. This plane, this 747 Heavy, with this tail number, left Portland, Oregon at this time, and someone else, say in Japan, reports that same plane landing 14 hours later. Okay? This social network then compiles all these comings and goings. And this was part of the social network that established the extraordinary renditions being done by the CIA. They outfoxed the CIA by open source, socially shared information, much like you would find on Wikipedia. This stuff is not encrypted, but it's all shared mostly among homeless people with big digital cameras. There's a lot of social stuff going on. One that I really like is the Overflow now series of sites. Math Overflow is a really interesting site. Okay, there's Stack Overflow and a few other overflow sites. But what's fun about this is a community of people sharing their knowledge about mathematics. They're passionate about mathematics. People will come in and post questions like, are there more connected or disconnected graphs on n vertices? Discussion ensues. These are all people who are not trolls. They're all there sort of because they want to participate in this online community. And they are smart. They write papers where the poster of the original question is cited as a co-author. This is interesting. This is a new kind of social experience. This is a new kind of computing. This is a new social service. We have social services built into all kinds of stuff, not just websites like Wikipedia or Math Overflow, but Google Docs, for example, has this ability to, for example, unravel and look at your edit history, and I can see who all else has edited this document over the course of time. It turns out just to be me in this case, but it could be other people in my shared document space. Work proceeds differently when you've got a lot of other people working with you on the same document, in the same space, in the same intellectual idea space. You can also turn on color tracking so you can figure out who exactly has done this. And this is a case from elementary school where they're working out how to do different kinds of distance education. You can check the edit history to see who's been editing it, and you can look at the colors to figure out exactly who contributed what. No more lurking in the background, not doing any work. We can tell what you've done. That has an interesting side effect. You can't lurk anymore. You can't just be a nobody. We also have social embedded into the fabric of the search engine. So you probably know, well, let me ask, how many people have used real-time search results? Raise your hand, okay? Okay, that looks like maybe 10%, okay? We have the ability to do essentially real-time feeds. So if you did the hashtag search Japan, clicked on the real-time search button on the left-hand side, you will see essentially instantaneous results from Facebook, CNN, MySpace, Twitter, all of those real-time sites. You can see on the right-hand side the graph of activity for that hashtag. Now remember, hashtags are not part of the Twitter spec. It was evolved through social practice. It was something that emerged from all the people trying to self-categorize what was going on. Okay? So what we can do is with the search service, we can now rapidly index these things. So when you make a tweet, it's indexed and online and findable in about 4 seconds. Think about that. We're indexing the web in 4 seconds. We have a lot of computers, you know? We also have the ability to whip together new kinds of social service tools, not just real-time indexing and real-time tweet searches and discovery, but after the Chilean earthquake, after the Haitian earthquake, people at Google very rapidly put together people finders to support disaster relief in those areas. So this is the one from Chile. I just happened to show it here in English. This is the one from Japan. This is the YouTube channel. if you're stuck and you're trying to find the rest of your family members, you can go to one of the local base locations and film your little second, a couple of seconds of, look, I'm stuck here, I need to find the rest of my family. We were able to do this because we have a set of services that are lying around ready to be combined, ready to be put together. So the engineering to put this together was under an hour. It was under an hour. And Windblad's comments notwithstanding, we have some good programmers, but they're not superhuman, right? We didn't build this from scratch. Remember when programming used to be knowing all the opcodes? When it used to be then, a few years later, knowing where all the functions were, the function definitions, the class definitions, and all that stuff? And now it's about knowing what services are available. We've lifted ourselves up out of the humdrum of opcodes up to the point where we're garbage collecting VMs. We're garbage collecting entire operating systems. We're building on top of services. Okay? So I'm still not sure what the future of information services will be, but it will be social and it will be very dense. Let me tell you what I mean by dense. This was the image. This actually is a slide I used to have in my deck at IBM when I talked about the future. I said, the future is going to be like this. And I was thinking, yeah, that's what my extrapolation is. But now, it's really close. You can sort of see it coming, right? We will have every edition of every book published in every language, 24/7. That's kind of where books is going, Google Books is going, right? The quantity, the density of information that's available through Google or any of the other web search engines is just staggering. Just in books alone, we've got around 20 million books scanned. 24 hours of video are being uploaded to YouTube every minute. 24 hours. So you do the math, how much storage is that, and how do we index it? Oh, and by the way, we're also scanning all that video for copyright violations. We're taking digital signatures of all the video clips and running it against all previously registered video at that rate, okay? That's an interesting service, right? We have, I don't even know how many billion images we have in Google Images, but we have 78,000 anteater images, 700,000 lolcat images. I don't know who's doing that, but it's an interesting kind of social phenomenon, right? We also have, X is in 3 digits, let me tell you that. Okay? We have a lot of documents in the index, okay? And all of it is searchable, okay? This is a phenomenal thing. I can go to Google and ask questions like, what is the population of Japan? And I'll get the answer in roughly 1/10 of a second. And what we're doing is actually crawling through all those documents and extracting questions and extracting answers. And that's where that comes from.